Namaste, my dear friends. Referring to you now, very important topic for our coming exams, input tax credit, ITC. Here we have section 16 to section 21. Section 16 of CGST refers if you being a taxpayer under the regular scheme, paying the tax under the regular scheme at a normal rate, you are eligible to avail the input tax credit provided if there is a cascading effect of tax. Is a fundamental aspect. Input tax credit is given only to eliminate cascading effect of tax. If there is no cascading effect of tax, question of availing the input tax credit does not arise, my dear friends. Is a fundamental foundation stone. Meaning thereby, I procure the goods, I receive the services by payment of the GST at a normal rate. And I am using that to provide my taxable output supply of goods, taxable output supply of services. Then only I am eligible to avail the input tax credit, provided it should not be blocked credit. That means there is a cascading. To eliminate the cascading, input tax credit is given. If there is no cascading, question of availing the input tax credit does not arise. Is a foundation stone. Having this, refer to the aspects. Section 16, subsection 2, class A, class AA, class BA, class B, class C, class D talks about conditions one should satisfy for availing the input tax credit. When you talk about section 16, subsection 2, clause A, what conditions? Hey, Mr. Taxpayer, you want to avail the input tax credit, you must be in your hand, should possess the tax invoice. In case of e-invoice, wherever e-invoice is mandatory, should possess the e-invoice. Meaning thereby, if a taxpayer who want to avail the input tax credit not allowed to avail if he is not having tax invoice, or he should have to have received debit note from his recipient of goods or services to avail the input tax credit. Now, sir, I misplaced the input tax credit, sir. Can I avail the input tax credit? I misplaced the input tax credit related to tax invoice. The tax invoice I misplaced, sir. Very good. Then don't avail. You are not eligible to avail the input tax credit. If you misplace the tax invoice, you are not eligible to avail the input tax credit. Sir, I am having a certified copy, Xerox copy of original invoice, but not the original invoice. Is it so? Certified copy of original invoice is allowed if it is a Xerox copy or a duplicate copy of the original invoice. So, I mean to say that if I am having certified Xerox copy of the original invoice, who certified? Department people certified, or a chartered accountant, cost accountant certified the true copy, namely original copy has been certified. In that case, can we have this particular input tax credit? Yes. A certified Xerox copy certified by the department or the relevant authority, namely chartered accountant, cost accountant who is in practice, then eligible to avail the input tax credit, because a proof of document is required, is the meaning of it. Further, goods or services should have been received under section 16, subsection 2, class B. In that case, section 16, subsection 2, class B very specifically says, hey, Mr. Taxpayer, you want to avail the input tax credit, the goods should have been received to your premises. The recipient of service, the service should be received by you, then only the input tax credit allowed. Sir, I have received the invoice in the month of August. I received the goods in the month of September. Yes, in that case, input tax is allowed for you in the month of September only, not in the month of August. Just because of having the tax invoice, you are not eligible to avail the input tax credit unless until the goods which pertain to that particular invoice have received in your premises or the service which you received in your site. Now, there's a concept deemed receipt. Yes, deemed receipt also is acceptable. What do you mean by deemed receipt of goods or services? I will tell you an example. I am C of Chennai. I procure the goods from H of Hyderabad. H of Hyderabad supplying the goods to C of Chennai. In that case, C of Chennai being a buyer requested the supplier, namely H of Hyderabad seller, hey Mr. H of Hyderabad, instead of directly sending the goods to me, you please send the goods to my job worker who is located in Andhra Pradesh. And you please bill to me. It is called as a bill to ship to model. In that case, well and good. In that case, Mr. H of Hyderabad billing to C of Chennai, shipping to job worker of C to Andhra Pradesh. In that case, the date on which job worker in Andhra Pradesh received the goods is deemed to be received by Mr. C of Chennai. In that case, he can avail the input tax credit based on the deemed receipt of goods concept. Further, my dear friends, when you talk about the section 16 subsection 2 class C, hey Mr. Supplier, you should make the payment to department, namely tax what you collected or what you liable to pay to department should pay to department on or before the respective due dates. Meaning what? The supplier who supply the goods or services should have been paid the tax to the department. If not paid, then input tax is not eligible for the recipient. There is a time limit is prescribed now, which I will refer to in due course. At the same time, the recipient of the goods or services wanted to avail the input tax credit, yes, allowed to avail only when the recipient should have been filed the return properly. Now, in the given scenario, if the goods are coming lot by lot, in that case, when I can avail the input tax credit? Only when the last lot received, that time only the recipient is eligible to avail entire input tax credit. Proportionate credit is not allowed when the goods are received lot by lot. In that case, when the last lot received, full and final lot has been received, that time only you allowed to avail the entire input tax credit on such inward supplies. Further, my dear friends, there is a concept called as, in the given case, if you refer here, I refer section 16 to A, there must be possession of tax invoice. Section 16 subsection 2, in that there is a concept called as clause AA has been introduced. Class AA. What it talks about? The details of the invoice or debit note referred to in class A has been furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supplies, and such details have been communicated to the recipient of such invoice or debit note in the manner specified under section 37. Meaning what? A supplier who supply the goods, a supplier who supply the services should have been uploaded in his output tax liability GSTR1 return, saying that I supply the goods to Ramu, I supply the goods to Rahim, I supply the goods to Robert. Like that, you have to be mentioned in your outward supplies statement written called as GSTR1 as per the section 37 of the CGST. That is requirement is there. That means the supplier, if not shown his liability in the GSTR1 return as outward supply, that cannot be claimed as a input tax credit by the recipient, is the meaning of section 16 subsection 2 clause AA. Then clause B we understood. There must be receipt of the goods, receipt of services by the recipient to avail the input tax credit. In that case, furthermore, they added here section 16 subsection 2 clause BA. Clause BA, they have been added. What it indicates? It says that as per the statement of the amended provision, the registered person would be eligible to claim the input tax credit only when the details of invoices or debit note received by the recipient from supplier from the recipient made available to him electronically on the GST network portal are not restricted to in the auto-generated statement referred to in GSTR 2B. Hi, in the given case, my dear friends, in the given case, GSTR 2B talks about static statement of input tax credit, which containing part 1, part 2. Part 1, eligible input tax credit under the GSTR 2B. Under GSTR 2B, part 2 talks about GST input tax credit not allowed, partly or wholly. Input tax credit not allowed. So when the input tax credit want to avail by the recipient, in his GSTR 2B return, in his GSTR 2B return, very clearly should be mentioned the part 1 eligible input tax credit, that alone is allowed to avail. That means the supplier who made supplies, when he submit the GST 1 return as his output tax liability of the supplier, which will be auto populated in the GSTR 2B of the recipient. If it's eligible credit, part 1 it shows, part 2 ineligible credit. So Mr. Recipient of goods or services, as per section 16 subsection 2 class BA, you are allowed to avail the input tax credit only that part 1 of the GSTR 2B, says section 16 subsection 2 class BA of the CGST Act. Now further, we have also mentioned a point, section 16 subsection 2 class C. What it talks about? Mr. Supplier of the goods, Mr. Supplier of the services, you should have been paid tax to the department. Then only the input tax credit is eligible for the recipient. Now we have a time limit for the given case, my dear friends. What time limit has been given, you know, my dear sir? I will show you here. In the given case is as follows. The time limit to pay the tax by the supplier to the department is as follows. I will show right now to you for your kind consideration. That is a very, very important point, sir, which is also one way or the other amended provision, my dear friends. Referring to you, rule number 37, rule number 37 capital A, which is relevant to refer along with the section 16 subsection 2 class C. Here, rule number 37 capital A says that if the supplier of the goods, supplier of the services not paid tax to the department, non-payment of tax by the supplier, then in that case the recipient should reverse the input tax credit or should pay amount to department whatever the credit what he availed along with the interest. What is the time limit for a supplier to pay the tax to the department? Means they have given the supplier shown his outward supply GST liability in the GSTR 1 return. Outward supplies supplied by the supplier, outward supply supplied by the supplier, it is his output tax liability. That has been shown very clearly in the GSTR 1. Then that is auto-populating in the GSTR 2B return of the recipient. So recipient avail the ITC. Now that liability shown in the GSTR 1 not paid by the supplier by filing the GSTR 3B return. GSTR 3B return not filed. For example, for the month of September 2024, supply of goods taken place and the September return GSTR 1 By going to file by 11th of October, he is shown the liability GST 1. But for the September month liability should pay by filing the GST 3B by 20th of October, which is not happened. GST 1 filed, but GST 3B not filed. That means tax not paid to department by supplier. In that case, recipient with immediately should reverse the input tax credit. The law says not required to immediately reverse the input tax credit by recipient. There's a time limit. Hey, Mr. Supplier, why you not pay the tax for the month of September by 20th of October? Sir, I'm not having the money, sir. All my suppliers has been taken on credit basis, sir. All of them, whenever I ask the payment, wait, they're telling, I am not having, sir. I am running with the loss, sir. There's no payment to make the payment. Is it so? So you are goodbye only, but not making the payment. Fine. In that case, you are allowed to pay the GST of the September month liability on or before 30th day of September of the succeeding financial year. That means in which financial year you have been submit the GST 1 return as your output as liability for the financial year 24-25 financial year. You have shown in the month of September your liability. Very good. For the year 24-25, that September month tax not paid by 20th of October. Now you can pay by 30th September 2025 is the meaning of it. If you paid, hey Mr. Recipient, Mr. Supplier is paid the tax before 30th September of the succeeding financial year. Therefore, you are not required to reverse the input tax credit. For example, if the supplier even not paid up to 30th September of the succeeding financial year, then in that case, Mr. Recipient, your supplier not paid the tax to department for the month of September supplies, you avail the input tax credit. Now you should reverse the credit by taking extra 2 months. That means October month you take time, and by you can take the November also you can take time. That means by 30th November you should reverse the credit. That means up to 30th September of the succeeding financial year, supplier not paid the tax. In that case, hey Mr. Recipient, you reverse that credit on or before 30th November of the succeeding financial year. For 2 months time is given to you after September 30th. You follow up with your supplier, let them make the payment. Still not paid the payment by 30th November of the succeeding financial year, namely 30th November 2025, in our given example, you should reverse the credit or pay the amount to department. Is what the rule number 37 capital A says, with amended provision, which is well applicable for our November 2024 or December 2024 exam onwards. Sir, the recipient came to know that after reversal of input tax credit in the year 2026, in the financial year 26-27, supplier what is not paid for the month of September 24 tax liability, he paid in the year 2026, sir. In the financial year 26-27, he paid, sir. Can I re-avail that input tax credit? What I reversed, asking by recipient. Hey, Mr. Chartered Accountant or Cost Accountant, you can say that, yes, hey, Mr. Recipient, since you have been availed the ITC already, which is reversed. Now you are going for re-availment of input tax credit. Allowed to avail anytime re-availment. For re-availment of input tax credit, there is no time limit. Section 16, Section 4, time limit to avail the input tax credit not applicable to re-availment of input tax credit. That provision also mentioned here by saying that, provided that where the said amount of input tax credit is not reversed by the recipient by 30th of November in his GST or 3B return, then that fellow, the recipient, should make the payment along with the interest following the end of the financial year during which such input tax credit has been availed. Such amount shall be payable by the said person along with the interest under section 50. Sir, what about if I honor rule number 37 sub capital A? I have honored, that means honor before 30th of November, I reverse the input tax credit. In that case, am I required to pay interest? Not required to pay interest. Only when you fail to satisfy rule number 37 capital A, not reverse the credit, not pay the amount by 30th of November, then only you are liable to pay interest at the rate of 24% per annum from the date of utilization of input tax credit till the date of payment if you fail to reverse by 30th of November. If you paid honor before 30th November or you reverse the honor before 30th November, very goodbye, for you no interest applicability. Later on, if I came to know that my supplier has been paid that amount to department, can I reavail the input tax credit? Yes, you can reavail the input tax credit. You look here, the para, provided further that where the said supplier subsequently furnish the return in the form GST 3B for the said tax period, the said registered person may reavail the amount of input tax credit in his GST 3B for a tax period thereafter. Excellent. So we came to know that section 16 subsection 2 clause B very clearly says that in the given case of supply the goods or services, the tax what he is liable to pay to department at least on or before 30th September of the succeeding financial year. If not, the recipient should reverse the credit by 30th November of the succeeding financial year. Later on, the supplier paid the amount to department, reavail the input tax credit by the recipient. Got the clarity, my dear friends? Any doubt in this particular point? Section 16, subsection 2, class C, read with rule number 37, capital A. Any difficulty to make you understand? Yes, please reconfirm to me. Is the amended provision one can expect in the examination? Reconfirm, please. Quickly, fast, react fast. Do not slow motion, clicking, unmuting or unmuting and talking with me. Sorry. Quickly respond. Have you understood or you want me to give furthermore explanations? With regard to rule number 37, where the recipient is reverse the credit on or before 30th September, November, if the supplier not paid the amount to department by 30th September of the succeeding financial year. Any doubt?
No, sir.
Very good. Now proceeding further. My dear friends, I already told you where the recipient availing the input tax credit. If so, such a recipient should ensure that make the payment to supplier on or before 180 days from the date of invoice. That is important to note. What do you mean this? In the given case, I am bringing to a notice amended provision for your kind consideration is as follows, my dear sir. Referring here, rule number 37 with regard to input tax credit, where if the recipient of the goods, recipient of services receive the goods or services on credit basis, the recipient should ensure that for making the payment to supplier within 180 days from the date of invoice. Hey, Mr. Recipient, if you not made the payment within 180 days from the date of the invoice, then you are not eligible to avail the input tax credit. You should reverse the credit by payment of interest, not only the tax, by payment of interest at the rate of 24% per annum from the day one of the utilization of the input tax credit. Sir, understandable, not understand, sir. Simple, my dear. Nothing is here. When a person, I am Mr. C of Chennai, for example. I am a C of Chennai, you are T of Trichy. You are a supplier of the goods, Mr. C of Chennai, buyer of the goods. I purchase from you the goods for rupees 10 lakhs, where you raise the invoice at the rate of 18%. namely 1,80,000 rupees input tax credit. I got an invoice value is 11,80,000, in which 1,80,000 tax shown separately. I avail the ITC. I have not paid to you 11,80,000. I can avail the ITC? Yes. I have time limit to make the payment to my supplier over a period of 180 days from the date of invoice. Sir, when the invoice has been received, 1st of September 2024, I received the invoice. 1st of September 24, I received the goods also worth rupees 10 lakhs, on which GST 1,80,000. I avail the ITC in the month of September. Payment single rupee not paid to my supplier. No problem. For a period of 180 days, you can avail the input tax credit on credit basis. You can utilize also. Ensure that before expiry of 180 days, hey Mr. Recipient of the goods, make the payment to supplier. Full amount you have to pay. 10 lakhs plus 1,80,000, 11,80,000 you should pay. Sir, within 180 days, I paid 5 lakh rupees, sir. Balance 5 lakh rupees, unable to pay, 180 days are expired, sir. In that case, proportionate amount of input tax credit can I avail? Yes. The law now permitted. The law got amended now. You are allowed to avail input tax credit proportionately to the extent what you paid to the supplier within 180 days, which has been very clearly mentioned by way of amended provision. Only proportionate reversal of ITC is required in the case where I paid partly not paid within 180 days from the date of the invoice. That means within 180 days I paid 5 lakhs. I mean to say I can avail the ITC on 5 lakhs 90,000. Balance 5 lakhs what I have not paid within 180 days. In that case, the balance on 5 lakhs, GST 18%, 90,000, I should reverse or pay the amount to department along with the interest. Which is obviously 24% per annum, if I am not wrong in this regard. Because input tax is not required to avail, but you availed. Therefore, you have to pay interest rate of 24% per annum on that. From the date of utilization of input tax kit till the date of reversal or payment to department. Sir, what about later on? I paid the balance 5 lakh rupees. After 2 years from now, I paid balance 5 lakh rupees to my supplier, sir. In that case, on which GST, namely 90 rupees, can I re-avail? Yes, mister, you are allowed to re-avail that particular balance amount what you paid on that input tax credit, allowed to re-avail, for which time limit is not applicable, time limit under section 16 subsection 4 not applicable. Time limit under section 16 subsection 4 of the CGS is applicable only when there is availment of credit, not for re-availment of credit. Then what do you mean by re-availment? For re-availment, there was a history of availment which is reversed, now re-availing. For availment, there is no history of availment. Therefore, first time I am availing is called availment. So, for availment only, time limit prescribed under section 16(4), not for re-availment of input tax credit. Got the clarity, my dear friends? Further, with this, I hope so, I have been covered the all points which is relevant from the exam point of view with regard to our section 16 subsection 2. Now referring to you section 16 subsection 3, which talks about, hey mister, you want to avail the input tax credit on capital goods? Yes sir. What do you mean by capital goods? Capital goods has been defined under section 2 subsection 19 of CGST, which says that the value of the goods capitalized in the books of the accounts by the person using input tax credit, by the person availing input tax credit and using the capital asset in the course or furtherance of his business. Meaning thereby, what is the amount you are going to capitalize in the books of accounts is your capital goods. The value of goods capitalized in the books of accounts by the person availing the input tax credit and using the asset in the course or furtherance of his business is called capital goods. In that case, such a capital goods on which GST paid, you want to avail the input tax credit, allowed to avail, provided you should not claim the depreciation under section 32 of the Income Tax Act under the block of assets on the part of the GST. Simple example, I procured the goods for 10 lakhs. GST paid thereon 28%, namely 2,80,000. Invoice price is 12,80,000. On what value I am going to claim depreciation under section 32 of the Income Tax Act? That is relevant. Sir, I am claiming the depreciation on the entire 12,80,000, which includes GST. Is it so? Hey, Mr. Recipient, you are not eligible to avail the input tax credit. Then when I can avail the input tax credit, sir? You can avail the input tax credit only when you purchase the goods and the capital goods has been received, tax invoice is there in your hands, 10 lakh is the value of the goods, GST 28%, 2,80,000, total value 12,80,000. If so, you claim depreciation under section 32 of the Income Tax Act only on 10 lakhs. Then you are not claiming the depreciation inclusive of GST. In that case, hey, Mr. Taxpayer, you are eligible to avail the 2,80,000 rupees GST on capital goods as input tax credit, allowed to avail. Is it clear, my dear friends? புரியுதாமா நான் சொல்றது? समझ में आ रहा है क्या? Is clear?
So repeat again, sir.
Section 16(3), am I right?
Yes, sir.
That I will repeat with the help of numeric example in simplified manner is as follows. In the given case, assume a scenario. X Limited being a registered person under GST paying the tax under the normal regular scheme. They have procured capital goods. CEG means capital goods for rupees 10 lakh, and there is, for example, IGST, which is, I said 28%, I said, which is 2.8 lakhs. So total value of the invoice price 12,80,000. Yeah, am I right? Is clear? In that, if you claim depreciation under section 32 of Income Tax Act 1961 on what value? On rupees 12,80,000. That means entire amount of capital goods inclusive of GST depreciation under section 32 of the Income Tax Act, you are claiming on 12,80,000. In that case, this particular GST, ITC not allowed, because you are going to get the benefit of income tax by higher amount of depreciation, lesser amount of income tax, you are tax saving under income tax. Then do not expect any input tax credit under GST. No, sir. Who said, sir, I am going to be claimed depreciation? I am going to claim depreciation on what value? No, sir. I am going to claim depreciation on rupees 10 lakhs under section 32 of Income Tax Act 1961. In that case, can I go to claim this particular amount as my input tax credit? In that case, law of the land says that yes, ITC allowed, because you are not claiming depreciation on capital goods inclusive of GST. You are claiming depreciation on capital goods exclusive of GST. Then ITC on such capital goods allowed. If not, not allowed. Now got the clarity? Quickly, fast reaction. Got it? This is what? Yes, section 16. This is what section 16, subsection 2 speaks, my dear friends. Furthermore, referring to you for your kind consideration. Time limit for availing the input tax credit under section 16 subsection 4. What it talks about? It talks about time limit for availment of input tax credit. 30th November of the following financial year or filing of annual return, whichever is earlier. 30th November of the following financial year or filing the annual return, whichever is earlier, is our time limit to avail the input tax credit. How to understand this in elaborate manner with the help of example I am going to present for your kind consideration is as follows, my dear friends. Referring here, example. See, here there is a company called ABC Limited, which is a registered person under regular scheme paying the tax under GST. In that case, here they have been received particular invoice. When they receive the invoice here, invoice dated 2nd September 2024, invoice date. Invoice date, then the value of invoice here, value is rupees, let us say 10 lakhs, GST 12%, which is nothing but 1,20,000. This is what the invoice. That means this invoice belongs to which financial year? The financial year 24-25 financial year. Now what happened? What you are here saying to me is this amount ITC not availed. Why not availed? Forget. Why forget? Accountant sleeping. Okay, leave it. So not availed. Not availed in this financial year. What is not availed? The rupees 1,20,000 ITC dated 2nd September 24, not availed ITC. Very good. In that entire financial year is over. Now we enter into new financial year. We enter into a new financial year. Financial year 25-26. In this financial year, can avail this as my input tax credit. Time limit here given. Time limit here is 1 up to 30th November 2025 or filing the annual return due date, which is 31st December 2025. Among the two, whichever is earlier, meaning thereby I can submit my annual return even well before 30th November also. Well possible. Why not? I am well allowed to submit the return well before 31st December. If I submit 30th June 2025 or 30th November, whichever is earlier, 30th June is the earlier. So assume annual return not filed before 30th November. In that case, 30th November is the earlier period. So ITC can be availed among these two dates, whichever is earlier. That is important. Whichever is earlier. So in that financial year, ITC allowed on or before this particular dates. On or before this particular dates. That is important to note. Sir, they wanted to avail the ITC in the financial year, for example, 26-27, then ITC not allowed. Because time limit is given here, which is section 16, subsection 4. Again, this time limit only for availment of ITC on tax invoice, which includes e-invoice, followed by debit note received by supplier from the recipient. Debit note received by the supplier from recipient means for a recipient debit note means for a supplier credit note. So the credit note on which he can avail the input tax credit. So the time limit to avail the input tax credit for the tax invoice or debit note, whichever may be, is this as follows: 30th November of the succeeding financial year, or by the due date of filing the annual return, whichever is earlier, or date of filing annual return, whichever is earlier. Now please come back. I hope so there won't be any difficulty to make you understand. But this section, my dear friends, not applicable. This section is not applicable for reavailment of input tax credit, which has been explained to you during the explanation. Further, coming back to the regular study. So once you understand section 16, section 4, then I can coolly go to the section 17 series, where we have 5 subsections, which I will cover to you now by taking little bit relaxation gap. I am going to take up further. So is a one part. The next part, section 17.5, block receipt and all will come into picture, along with section 18, namely special circumstances to avail the input tax credit, will be covered.